This is my 14.4, which is reviewing my coaching lesson by Spike Lesbriggs. My lesson was based off American football, so it included throwing and catching American football correctly, and learning how to chase and plan where a pass is going to be, and be there for when the pass is there or when the ball is there, and catching it correctly. So, in my peer review, it was stated that my strengths were my demonstration, knowledge, and planning. So, my demonstration being showing them actively demonstrating how to throw and catch American football correctly. So, with the leading it with your shoulder instead of hips, and with knowledge, knowing parts of the game where it would be applied. So, from the quarterback being thrown out and to perhaps like a wide receiver, where their job is to essentially just latch onto any pass out wide and score touchdowns by running into the end zone after this catch. Planning would be the fact that I planned the session and knew exactly how everything was going to lead into everything else. So when finishing one, maybe the warm-up, going straight in to the next activity and either having it all set out already, or knowing how quickly, or knowing how to quickly explain and lay out the next activity. My weaknesses were stated to be motivation, enjoyment, and adaptation. With motivation, some of the participants were losing motivation after maybe after when it was raining. So when it did start raining, they'd lost motivation, and I didn't help that. And whenever they'd perhaps do something right or wrong, I wouldn't offer the praise or the motivation that is needed or necessary for the situation. Enjoyment, again, I think that the rain didn't exactly help my session, but it was stated that enjoyment was a problem where my session was some parts were too short and some parts were too long. So there was a part where it was intended to be fun, so they would be split up into two groups, and they'd play against each other, like touch, decent, like an American football version of like tag rugby. So it wasn't like physical aspects, but still playing the game. That was quite short, so I think they wouldn't have enjoyed that as much as I had to lead quite a long warm-up because it's full body, so it would be longer than, say, the sprint starts for another session where they'd only be warming up the legs and maybe the arms, but as it's running and catching, I'd have to do full body. Adaptations, again, it was quite difficult to adapt in this, as it would lose the whole part of American football if I was to adapt it. So if I was to adapt, then it would be shorter distances for throws, or perhaps a different way of catching that would be less effective, or more effective, just less applicable to the game. So maybe instead of having to continue running when catching, I would have to stop them from running, turn around, catch the ball, and then start running again. But there was also where the American football part I had to stop the American football applied part of the session, where my one of my participants couldn't throw it correctly, so I had to get a netball, and they would throw that instead, throw and catch that. My self-review, I think it was pretty clear that my demonstrations were a strength because I did know it, and that's how knowledge was also one of them. So demonstration is a strength for myself that I see. My confidence because I did know it, I knew what I was talking about, and if I was asked a certain question, then I would know and I could confidently answer it without being unsure of the answer or what to do. I also think that body language was definitely a strength, as I was able to get to all the groups, and my attention wasn't exactly like splayed between certain groups, so I was easily getting to both displaying correct body language, never having my back to the session unless I had to go and get a different piece of equipment, where I would then have them start an activity and continue it when I went to go and get it. Also, the way that I did explain, I did open myself up and use a lot of body language and facial expressions to try and aid what I'm doing. But my weaknesses were motivation, enjoyment, and adaptation, like it was for the peer review. So I do see these as weaknesses, like motivation, lot of loss of motivation due to a low level of enjoyment. Those two of them, and then adaptation, having to go from American football, so there wasn't much I could do for an adaptation, and I definitely should have planned for something to change if something did go wrong or something wasn't available, like the resistance bands. I didn't plan for that, so that the fact that we didn't have correct resistance bands for what I was planning on doing, so I then had to change my session, and that did change it quite drastically. The adaptations I did make, however, were the netball for the American football. So one of my participants couldn't throw and catch an American football correctly at the start, so they'd change for a netball, and pass that and catch that, and as it's much easier. And then as the session went on, try and get them to throw and catch correctly again, and then progressively, as I get better, apply it into the training as well with the rest of the group. Again, we didn't have resistance bands for sprinting, the ones that wrap around you and you have someone behind you holding it. We didn't have those, so we did have to change that quite drastically. And with one of the activities, I was planning on having actual sprint starts with the elastic band, the resistance bands, so you could be more explosive in the chasing of the pass or leading the pass. But that wasn't available, and as it did rain very heavily, I couldn't apply sharp turns as some of the participants didn't have correct footwear. So with that, I couldn't have them go into a situation where they'd have to turn extremely sharply and they'd slip and possibly injure themselves. What would I change for next time, however? I would make sure that everyone did have that correct equipment, like the footwear. So the correct footwear equipment, like the resistance bands. I would extend that fun activity of the game between the two groups, and with the intensity of all activities, I would up that, as I did feel that it was easy to kind of get away with just jogging, because it was quite some of the activities were very long, so if they had a higher intensity, they would become fatigued quite quickly and very tired. A suitable course for me would be the Sports Leader Level 3, as it is nationally recognised, and it builds skills like organisation planning, leadership, and it allows you to a statement here where it increases your ability to independently lead purposeful and enjoyable physical activity. You can do it between the ages of 15 to 17. It has 126 hours of total training hours, where 60 hours of that is tutored and 30 hours of that is leadership, where it's monitored, but it's by yourself, so it's independent. And it also offers 16 UCAS points if done correctly, and to the full mark. If you get full marks, you will get 16 UCAS point. The course does have 8 units, including legal and ethical responsibilities, leading sports sessions with children, older people, disabled people, organising and leading a sports event or a competition, leading sessions designed to improve fitness, developing leadership skills, and provision of like sport within the community. So you maybe have a look at what sports are available in your community and try to improve that, or set up something where you have something for your community that you set up and run. And that can be part of that can be one of the units. The legal and ethical responsibilities, so that's working with others, so what you do have to look out for, what could be a problem. Session with children, older people, disabled people. Self-explanatory, where you run sessions with these people, and it's they do have different levels of like intensity, different kind of obviously different targets for each session, so you'd have to change that, so it's not just running the same session each time.